Right, boys and girls, we're on to chapter 8 now. Let's see what happens. Iris woke up suddenly. Oliver, she said, sitting up in the dinghy and looking around. Night had fallen while she slept. Moonlight and starlight slivered the sea. The dinghy rose and fell upon a gentle swell. He's gone, said Mr. Culpepper, swooping down to land on the side of the dinghy with the beak full of sardines. He left you a note. Iris looked round and saw the note that Oliver had left, tucked into a gap between the bottom boards. What does it say? She wondered. How would I know, said Mr. Culpepper. I'm an albatross. Iris peered at the letters with her short-sighted eyes. Gone back to the Foilstone, back soon, love, Oliver. There you go then, said Mr. Culpepper. Iris looked up. Even she could see the Foilstone with the water mole balanced on its top. But what about the army of monkeys? She said, flapping her fins about in irritation. He'll be taken prisoner just like his mum and dad. She launched herself over the dinghy's side and dropped with a splash into the sea. It felt good to be in the warm, scented waters of the shallows once again, skimming over the silvery sand, flashing past the feet of rambling islands. But halfway to the Foilstone she collided with a shoal of mermaids who were heading busily in the other direction. Oif! Said their leader. He was a fat merman, and he was annoyed at being butt-headed in the belly. Watch where you're going, can't you? Sorry, said Iris. I'm on my way to the Singing Rocks. Yes, come on, the mermaid snapped. And before she could say that, no, that wasn't where she was going at all. Iris had been swept up in the excitable shoal of young mermaids. They were all done up to the nines with polished tails, starfish in their hair. Each carried her comb and mirror. There were a few who Iris knew, and the very ones she used to laugh at her for her short-sightedness. Where are we going? She asked as they bristled along. She hadn't been much more than a mer-baby on the last night of the Seawigs. She wasn't entirely sure what it involved. We're off for the Singing Rocks, one of them said to her, to sing our songs for the Rambling Islands. Mermaids always sing on the night of the Seawigs, remember? Seawigs, remember? Come on. But I can't sing, protested Iris, trying to turn away. They grabbed her hands and dragged her with them. Of course you can, they said. There's no time to be modest. Come along. There they are all, dolled up. Look, all the mermaids, and there she is being dragged along. And now it's on to chapter 9. We will carry on. Up and up went Oliver through the maze of the Bad Island's empty heart. That's a great picture, look at that. It was not like climbing for a person's inside. That would have been horrid. Everything seemed to be made of stone. The only thing that told Oliver he was inside a living being was that sometimes when he set his foot down or grabbed an out-jutting bit of passage wall, the whole thing twitched. The Foilstone was ticklish, it seemed. Oliver tried to use the only weeds and ferns as handholds. Once he worked that out. Not all of them had deep roots. Twice he nearly fell, while leaves and clumps of rooty earth were tumbling down the shaft to splatter into the black pool where the squid and octopuses were waiting, tentacles crossed, hoping that he'd fall. But Oliver was a good climber. All the mountains and crags and lost temples he'd climbed with his mum and dad had made sure of that, and long before he was at the top. He clawed out of the crack in the summit of the Foilstone. The water mole and the other shipwrecks loomed over him. Monkey drums boomed and stone xylophones clattered. The monkeys were having a wild old time, dancing around their fires, toasting some sea bits on sticks and painting glasses and moustaches on the old sea heads. None of them noticed Oliver as he cracked like a damped ghost between the trees. Soon he reached the temple. Outside its great stone entrance was a pool, and on the pool the 2 glass globes that held his parents floated. Mr. and Mrs. Chris were asleep, huddled in the bottom of the globes, which clinked gently against each other from time to time, like wine glasses. Mum, called Oliver softly. Dad! They did not stir. Poor things, they were just exhausted as Iris after all these adventures. Mum! He shouted, wading in the pool and banging his fist against the globes. Still his parents did not wake, although Dad rolled over and muttered something in his dreams. But someone had heard Oliver. A voice from behind said, "Ha!" He turned round. There stood Stacey de Lacy with his army of monkeys around him. Some of them were beating their drums and banging their xylophones. One held a tray of biscuits, another a cool drink for Stacey, and two others fanned him with a big peacock feathered fans. The rest just stood bibbling like men mad at wind-up toys, full of excitement and all the mischief that lay ahead. There you can see, there he is, and the fans, and the drums. That's Oliver. "You," said Stacey de Lacy, pointing rudely at Oliver. "So here you are, come to thieve and sneak and spoil my plans." "I just want my mum and dad back," Oliver promised. "Well, you can't have them," jeered Stacey. "The Fellstone needs them. They are the finishing touches on his wig. They could make all the difference. They're just the sort of thing that will make him stand out." "Why do you care about the Fellstone winning?" Oliver asked miserably. "Ah," said Stacey de Lacy. "We've got a deal, me and the Fellstone. If I help him win the Seawig thing, then he'll help me. Imagine the power I'll have with this great big giant at my command. And the other Rambling Islanders will follow the Fellstone. And when they see his wonderful wig, the winner of the Seawigs night is a sort of king. They'll have to do as he says. We'll stomp New York, smash London, sit on Shanghai. The whole world will tremble before us. Nobody will dare say I've got a girly name then." "But you have got a girly name," grumbled Oliver. "Monkeys!" howled Stacey de Lacy. Oliver tried to fend the monkeys off, but soon he was pinned down under a gibbering heap of them. Meanwhile, some others had gone rushing into the side of the chamber of the temple and reappeared, bowling a third glass globe. Some held it steady while the rest unscrewed its lid. Then Oliver was monkey-handled onto it. The lid was then put tightly on top. He was concealed inside. Stacey de Lacy grinned at him, his leering face stretched out the shape of the thick glass. "Now the Fellstone's wig is finished. Just look, 2 stupid crisps, but the whole set." Tittering with mischief, the monkeys rolled Oliver away. Mr. and Mrs. Crisp had woken by the noise and were sitting up inside their globes, watching sadly as their son was trundled past them. "I'm sorry," mouthed Oliver through the glass. There you can see Mr. and Mrs. Crisp, and there's Oliver and the monkeys. A reef of dark rocks rose from the hollow shallows, with the waves breaking whitely around it. Wet stones shone in the moonlight. The mermaids scrambled through the surf and up onto the reef's rocky ledges. There they sat, each with their comb and her mirror and her long hair blown sideways on the breeze. Their plump choir master bobbed like a seal in the waves and clapped his hands to the mermaid's attention. "Time for a quick practice, girls. Sing up!" As they sang, their voices blended with the voices of the sea and wind, and all over the hollow shallows the Rambling Islands forgot their nervousness and listened. Up on the Fellstone's head, Oliver and his mum and dad heard that song. It sent shivers rifling through their spines. They couldn't listen for long, though. They were busy being rolled about the Fellstone summit by monkeys and dangled over its edge. "Stop, stop, stop!" the fat merman shouted, clapping his hands over the ears. "The song of the mermaids was meant to sound strange and unearthly, but this strange and unearthly, someone's singing flat," he said. Accusingly glaring at the rows of singers, Iris knew it was her. She blushed deep red. The merman spotted her and pointed. "You! Sing for me!" Iris drew a deep breath and sang as loudly and sweetly as she could. An awful, strangled note emerged, so piercing that the nearest mermaid's mirrors cracked. "Stop! Stop!" the mermaid shouted. "What a disgraceful racket! What were you thinking of, joining our choir with a voice like that? Be off with you!" Iris started to explain that she hadn't meant to join the choir at all, then decided there wasn't time and splashed back into the sea. She couldn't imagine why she wanted to find her way home to all these silly mer people. Her new friends were much more fun. All she cared about now was rescuing Oliver. We are on to chapter 10. We're going to leave it there for now. Hope you're enjoying. Bye.